Hello, this is Linda Vettrus-Nichols, and do I have an amazing person to introduce to you, Carol Banens. Welcome, Carol.
Hi, Linda. So nice to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Great to have you. Absolutely. Okay, so be grateful. You are a grief coach these days. So, what comes up when you think about be grateful?
Well, I can tell you when you're in grief, you don't think it's hard to find gratitude. I
What
know.
you're grateful for.
And I'm a grief to gratitude coach, but I actually had a gratitude journal that I have done for years.
Oh, okay.
I can remember after Brian died, I do it every night, no matter what. And I can remember sitting upstairs with my diary open, thinking, "Oh, what am I grateful for?"
No.
And I made sure I found something, whether it was my warm bed in the
Oh,
winter or the air conditioning or little things. It didn't matter. I kept that practice going. And the thing about gratitude, as you can keep adding it into your day, is it keeps you in the present moment. And the thing about grief is we can keep looking back and look at the loss and, oh my gosh, I miss them. Of course you do. I'm not saying you don't. But if for a moment you can come into the present moment and go, you know what? Being grateful for the smallest of things is really helpful because it keeps us in that present moment. And whether that's going for a walk and smelling the flowers, Dr. Rick Hansen has something called taking in the good. And, let's take the flower example. You're going for a walk. Rather than walking past it and going, oh, that's nice, you stop. You take 20 seconds, you look at the colors, you inhale the scent, and you really expand the beauty of that moment. And that helps us to bring a more positive outlook, which you need so desperately in grief. But the other thing about gratitude is gratitude for the life lost. We can focus so much on what we've lost.
yeah.
What about the things we can be grateful for that that person added? Now, I appreciate that not everybody had easy relationships with the person they've lost. So finding gratitude can actually be very challenging for some people who've had hard relationships. But what are the things that you can be grateful for? I found that very, very helpful in my grief journey.
Very cool. I love it. And you're referring to stop and smell the roses idea, just stay in the present moment, not, those next steps that you're taking to get to that next bridge on your walk or whatever. And yeah, whether you're grief or not, staying in the present moment is super hard. And I would think it would be twice as hard in grief. How do you feel about that?
It is super hard, 47% of the time in normal, not in grief, people are not in the present moment. They're either worried, they're thinking about what went wrong, what they could have, should have done, or they're getting anxious about the future and they're not bringing themselves into the moment and enjoying whatever there is around them. And I think it's a practice, gratitude practice. How can we keep being grateful or appreciative for our house, for our computer, for our phone? There is so much that we can be grateful for despite our loss.
Yeah, absolutely. The number one thing with anything that happens, like if we have an injury and all of a sudden, we can't get around as well, or we lose somebody, the focus becomes you. And as soon as a human is doing all this me focus, it gets pretty depressing because, as we talked about in another video, the idea of connection, we are that's what we're all about. We're here for connection. We
Yeah.
are all about connection. And yeah, so that I crushed my heel in a gymnastics accident in high school. And about, I don't know, was it 5 months later, I lost my dad to suicide. So I kind of had a double whammy.
Oh my
And
goodness.
yeah, so I had, or it was actually, there I go. It was actually the other way around. I lost my dad to suicide and had a gymnastics accident. That's another thing about like loss and grief. Like, and trauma, you don't even get your story straight half the time. So it's just like, duh. Yeah. And so so yeah, focusing on what you've lost. I was already there, and then losing the ability to
Yes.
even go to school because it was so swollen for like a month. I couldn't even cast it. Yeah. And so my thing was to just focus in on what I loved to do, which was sewing, but I couldn't even like do that. So I just started embroidering and doing hand sewing. And my mom said that she could always tell how much pain I was in by how lousy my stitches were.
Oh,
They were pretty
yeah.
good till I was into pain, but I had a really high threshold for pain. So I didn't even know I was in pain. And I
Yeah.
wasn't telling her I was in pain. So I found that interesting.
Embroidery, that's beautiful. But you know, as we talk about the loss, and I'm so sorry that you lost your dad by suicide, that it's so tragic. Loss is, you know, grief can be from any significant loss. Let's put that out there. That can be divorce, can be pet loss,
Oh yeah. There's a
physical
lot of
loss.
grieving there.
You
Mm-hmm.
know, the injury you had not being able to go to school, that's a grief because you're losing your friendships, you're not connecting. So grief is very expansive. It isn't just when we lose a person.
Yeah,
Any
for sure.
change, loss in your life.
Yep. And being grateful expands who we are. Ooh, I like that one. So tell us more.
It does. It does. And you know, people who are grateful are nicer to be around. You connect,
Mm,
you appreciate other people, appreciate yourself, you appreciate other people, you appreciate nature, you appreciate animals. Those people tend to have a kind of a nicer energy around them. And I know I'm talking about grief, and it's hard to have a nice energy in grief. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about further on. But I find that gratitude in grief is a super helpful tool for you to just have a break from the awfulness of it.
yeah,
Because it's awful.
right.
And you need anything you can do to just give yourself a little bit of a break is helpful. And I think gratitude is one of those tools that you can use.
Yeah, without being toxic, right? Because that
Of course.
whole cheer up thing can be so super toxic. Well, at least if you know, and then other people expect you to live an at least life. Well, at least this wasn't
Oh
too
my
bad.
gosh.
And we do it to ourselves too. Well, at least this, like I'm better off than other people. It's like,
Yes, exactly. I think, you know, I think you have to be sensible about gratitude. Pick something, you know, not I'm so grateful I'm still here. I'm grateful that I'm in a house that has air conditioning when it's 40 degrees, or I'm grateful for my morning coffee. It can be that small. I'm grateful for the fresh air today because there's no smoke from fires, whatever it is. But it doesn't mean that you're grateful for this happy life when you just lost someone.
right.
You're grateful for the small things. Focus on the really tiny things that ring true. That
Yeah,
ring. You're not
exactly.
you're not making things up. You
Yep.
are. I'm grateful for my iPhone. I'm grateful for my computer. Every day I use it.
Yeah.
So those are things you can really click into.
Yeah, and back to the video we did on relish, we can relish the things that we have because living in privilege, we all have one level of privilege, there's
So much.
right, so we can all kind of like lean on that. And yeah, and so knowing that privilege can be lost. We all found that out with COVID,
We
right?
did.
So,
We
right. So relishing in the privilege that we do have, and being in the present moment with it and really noticing it at, keeps us more conscious of those who do not, and
yeah, I
gives
think
us that sense of automatic sense to like reach out to those who don't have it and to lend a helping hand. Just one little word from someone who's in a position of privilege changes history, right?
yeah, it does. And you know, a smile. It's we can all do that. We can,
Yeah.
we can do that. And it's so meaningful to somebody. Again, when you're out and somebody smiles at you, how does that warm your heart? How
Right.
much would it do, and how grateful are you for that? The
Mm-hmm.
other thing about gratitude of the moment is not always looking about what you don't have. Look at what you've lost, but also what you don't have. Oh my gosh, I don't have a fancy car. I don't have this holiday. be grateful for where you are. I
Yeah,
think really
absolutely. And just seeing others as humans. And I was in a store and the lady was on the phone, and I'm the type that I don't even want anybody coming up asking me if I need help. I'm like totally cool. And when I left the store, she said thank you and made eye contact with me on a human level, not this is what I'm supposed to do because I work here level. So it was a just that added human touch, and I was able to like look back at her just with that human touch, and it was such a beautiful exchange that I was very grateful for. So yeah.
You know, Linda, that reminds me, I was in a department store here in Ottawa, and the lady said, you know, the usual, how are you today? And I said, you know, very well. And I said, how are you doing? And she stopped literally and she said, nobody ever asked me.
Yeah,
And I said, well,
so true.
has it been a busy day? Is it okay?
Ah, that was so sweet to
She's like,
inquire.
oh, thank you. Like, she was so stunned that somebody cared enough to ask.
Oh,
Make
I
somebody
love it.
very easily
Yeah,
by going back to being kind.
there you go. Exactly. So you walk the talk. I love it. Thank you so much, Carol. This has been wonderful.
Oh, thank you so much, Linda. It's been a pleasure.